taxes!
He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 116 of 9-1 Lone Star Roundup. I'm one of your hosts, Katie, and with me are my lovely co-hosts, Grace and EJ.
Hello.
Hello.
Today we will be talking about season 7, episode 8 of 9-1, titled Step 9. There is literally so much to talk about. I freaking love this episode.
Goodness.
It was very mixed reaction. A lot of people fair amount of people, I'm not gonna say a lot of people were like, ooh, I did not like this, but I loved it. I don't get how you did not like this. This is such a good episode.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just my corner of the fandom or whatever, but everyone seemed largely to love it.
I think
I don't think I saw any mixed reactions really.
Yeah, I think the general population loved it, but I think there were those few people I've posted, people are like, I could have lived without this, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I disagree, but
I personally feel like there was a ton in this episode that we've been dying for a long time.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
What I will say is I think there's some stuff going on in the fandom that's making people a little more desiring of other things going on in the episodes, but I'm like, I've wanted a lot of the answers that we got tonight in this episode. So yeah.
We got so many episodes. We got so much background. We got so much content, and we also can now proclaim Bobby Nash as a member of the traumatized by shitty parents club.
Okay, can we just talk about how they all have
Yes!
parrots?
Yes.
Literally
Eddie,
everyone.
Jim, the whole 118.
Even Hen had a rocky relationship with both the parents for some point. But now I'm starting to feel like she might be the one with the best standing relationship with her parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't really know much about how Eddie's doing lately with his dad, but I feel like things have improved. But Buck is I don't know. Yeah.
We don't even
that's all.
know.
Yeah. But yeah,
I feel like most people have reached a stasis in their argument or some sort of level ground with their parents at this point because we've tackled their parental trauma already. But the parents still not necessarily great. But now we have Bobby as well, who has been basically the parent. And it's oh, this is because you were traumatized. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So we got a lot
get it.
in here, and I'm so happy. I'm happy.
Yes. There's really so much to talk about, so let's just get to it. So we start off with Bobby's AA meeting. And I love Bobby just leading these meetings. It just it shows how far he's come, and I know it's not the first time we're seeing this, but I just love it so much. And it's just I love seeing growth, and his growth has been just amazing. And then of course Bobby asks oh, does anybody else have anything that they need to share? And then we see obviously Amir's at the meeting, which we knew from the promos, and he speaks up, and so he goes up and he speaks, which is kind of this is weird, why are you here? Because we know just context wise he's not an addict, so he's kind of just there, and it's okay, what's going on? And so he speaks and says how he shouldn't be here, but he is, because yeah, he could have been an addict and he was checking out a meeting in LA, but then it was okay, yeah, this is exactly how we expected. And he talks about the fire in Minnesota, and even mentioning the 148. So with the fire, Bobby knew that he was talking about that fire, especially, but it was especially clued in with the 148. And so yeah, that's Bobby's fire that he started. And then Amir is mentioning his wife, and he said how Bobby obviously not naming dropping him, but how he just walked away. And he mentions how he became a nurse because he could be angry or he could help others. And he's talking and he's looking right at Bobby, and after Bobby is just sitting there just so shocked that actually happened, and he doesn't honestly fathom that that just happened. Everyone is cleaning up and getting ready to leave, and Bobby is just sitting there in disbelief, and I'm just poor Bobby.
Well, yeah, no, go ahead.
No, go on.
I was just gonna say I'm really glad that Amir didn't drop his name, because it wouldn't have done anything, just made things work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I have a lot of feelings about just Amir in general. I'll go out over them when we talk a little bit more further in the episode. But I don't know. I think it wasn't he did it very well because he did it in a way that only Bobby knew what he was going to be talking about. And that's because he was there for Bob.
Right.
He wasn't there for any other reason. I do think the AA meeting was an interesting way of being there, but I did think that when he said that he wasn't supposed to be there, I thought he was referencing he should have died in the fire, not that he shouldn't be at the. That's what I read from it, but he might have meant both. Who knows?
No, I think
Yeah.
he meant like he wasn't supposed to be at the meeting.
Anyway, like this is certainly like they're throwing you into it immediately. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, but also I find it like, did we ever get clarification on why he knew about an AA that Bobby would be at an AA meeting?
Oh, I didn't think about that. Wow, how would he know he's there? Unless he's following him.
I feel like he did his research
Probably.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, yeah, he probably, like, I would imagine that he just did his research and he just, like, after that meeting last week, because honestly, he didn't even know, like, anything, to our knowledge, he didn't know anything about, like, Bobby besides seeing, like, his name on the back of his jacket,
Mm-hmm.
on his turnouts, and then that clued him in. I don't know. I have like so many thoughts of what I thought, but I'm not sure
that
they're
might
true.
Yeah, that might just be like the biggest like little thing that I'm like, like what led to this point. But I don't know. Like obviously we got a lot more answered in the episode, but that just was something that occurred to me just now. I was like, how do you know about that?
Yeah, I'm very like interested. I don't know, but like I don't know. I feel like he figured some things out somehow. Don't know how,
Or
but
maybe like if he knew how the fire started and knew about how Bobby was before, maybe he made an educated guess. So
yeah,
I don't know.
probably. It's interesting to think about for sure.
Yeah, not a big deal, but certainly an interesting thought.
Right.
So then we get this flashback at like an award ceremony and a mention of a Captain Nash. And it did take me like just like half a second to like be like, wait, this looks weird. And then I realized it was like, this is Bobby's dad.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, we're finally getting information about Bobby's family. Yes.
Which there was that drop, I think it was last season, about Bobby being in a long line of firefighters. And I was
Yes.
like, okay, that's really interesting. Like, can we get more of this? And like finally we're starting to get like this is the first piece of that, like, you know, mega puzzle, I
Mhm.
suppose. And so yeah, and like I was just like, so like we obviously see like young Bobby and I'm like, but wait. And then I remember watching it and I'm like, wait, that's young Bobby. Oh my God.
Also, they cast him so well.
They did.
Yeah.
Like they did such a good casting on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
so
they do actually for all of their like the younger versions of their characters. Like they've been pretty spot on.
yeah, they really did. Okay, we need to see like a young Eddie though, because we never got that.
True. We need that. Anyhow, continue.
But yeah, we get that, and so Bobby's dad like gets this award, and like it's so cute seeing how proud Bobby is of his father. And then afterwards, they're like at like this gathering at their house, like celebrating this award, and we start to see things. So we see Tim drinking and his wife questioning him about it, like how many drinks he's had and stuff. And then we see Bobby and like his older brother, Charlie, I believe his name was, who looks to be like a young teenager. He looks to be a lot older than
Mhm.
Bobby, which is interesting.
I've heard people say about 5 or 7 years older, like
Yeah.
as a guess, and I think that looks about right.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
sounds
So-
about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It was interesting because again, brother had been mentioned before.
I didn't realize that until like I saw like notes online. Somebody said, yeah, in this episode, Bobby mentioned doing this with his brother.
He played lawn darts with him.
Yes,
Mm.
that's what it was.
I
And
saw
I was
a
like,
reminder of that recently. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what that was.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and then Bobby gives his dad this book that he made with like all the people he saved and like stuff, and he works so hard on it. That was so sweet.
It was so
And like then Bobby grabs this glass of like beer or whatever it was, and his dad says like, oh, you've earned it. So he drinks a little bit and then he immediately vomits, and I'm just like, oh, that's great. And so then after like present time, Bobby goes home after his meeting, and obviously like it was hard night for him, and like so both Athena, Harry, and May are home and they have like family dinner. But Bobby is just had like this, like, obviously that encounter with Mir, and like he did not, like, it was just not good. But like I love like May being like, oh, it's good to see you, and like them hugging, like that was so sweet.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I love their relationship. It's so wholesome.
Well, I think Bobby has come a long way in his recovery, but there's always going to be lingering things. And I think his current family constantly is a reminder of what he lost. I mean, he's got a stepdaughter and a stepson and a wife. He lost his wife, his son and daughter. So there's a lot of parallels there. And I think being, I don't know, having that come up in such a way, and he mentions it even later on in the episode about, he never really thought about the survivors of the apartment fire. He thought he was the only one, but there were other survivors.
I think after having to face the apartment in season 2, he thought he wouldn't necessarily have to deal with external factors again.
Yeah.
Which, generally you wouldn't think he would, but also, the world's only so small.
Right.
So.
And I'm really happy with, he looked like a zombie when he walked in. Like he was totally like glossed over. Like he was happy to see May and Harry and Athena, and it was just, he just wasn't thinking himself, and he just didn't seem like himself. And I don't blame him. It's like he saw a ghost in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And then Athena realizes in the next scene, in the middle of the night, that Bobby is in bed. So she gets up and stuff, and she goes to see what's going on, and she notices like the laptop being closed. She asks about like the 4 a.m. Google searches, and Bobby shows her like it, and it's Amir and his wife. And Athena says how like they're a good-looking couple, and asks if he knows them, and Bobby says that like he killed her, and Bobby tells Athena that he showed up at his AA meeting and maybe found him when he brought Catherine Morris's daughter to her in the hospital. And then like Athena's like, what? Well, was that like some coincidence? And Bobby's like, yeah, that wasn't a coincidence that he showed up. Like he wanted Bobby to see his plan and grief and what he had done, which is why I'm like, that wasn't just random, him being there. And Bobby's like, oh, I didn't say anything because he like froze, and by the time he like got his bearings, Amir was gone. And Bobby says how like that night he counted the bodies, the lives lost, but he never counted the survivors and the people left behind. And Bobby says how he has to make amends, and obviously he quotes step 9,
which it's very important in AA and NA to go through these steps. And I think there was a part of Bobby that kind of felt like he'd always kind of completed that, or so he thought. Again, he hadn't thought about survivors, and they deserve the amends too.
Yeah. It's like something that you never think about. Like, I think it's natural to like just think about like the loss than to think about, oh wait, there were survivors. Because I think like I'm sure that there were few survivors compared to everyone that sadly passed away during that time. So,
but there's not only survivors, there's also families of victims. So the people that weren't in the apartment fire, but yeah, so there's a lot of people impacted by tragedy, and honestly, it's generally just the dead that get thought of. Sometimes the survivors, if it's broadcast enough, but in a case like this, Bobby was not thinking about them, and that's not a fault on his part. It's just was not what he was focused on.
Right.
And when it all happened and Bobby quote unquote left Minnesota, he had to work on his own dang life. He couldn't stay, or we don't know where Bobby would be if he had stayed in Minnesota. It probably would not have been healthy for him.
I don't think he would have made it if he had stayed in Minnesota. I think there would have been too many reminders, not necessarily, not just of like the people that he killed, but also like his own family. I think it would have been way too hard for him.
People also knew what happened.
Yeah.
And that's like one reason why he transferred to begin with, was because people knew what had happened. And people weren't looking at him the same anymore. But if he had stayed there, he would for sure not still be alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he found a purpose in the 118. And then rebuild his life again. So really, he's come so far.
He
But
has.
as one of you said earlier, he's never fully going to be through it because you can't.
Yeah, that's something you never get over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Bobby is obviously after this trying to get in contact with Mir because he does want to obviously make amends. So he's like talking on a phone in the hospital to try to like be able to contact him or something. And he's told that he needs to fill out a formal request. But then he runs into a doctor that he knows that apparently like works like in the burn unit or something. So like he asked like, "Oh, do you know Amir?" And she mentions how like, oh, yeah, she knows him, and like mentions how like they just wish that they had Amir full time. So he's like, oh, so he's already gone. But then no, we find out he's a travel nurse, and this is kind of making sense. And so then we don't find out in this scene, but it's like the next scene when Bobby's at home talking to Athena. She's like, yeah, Kumba, which I had to look up because I wasn't sure where it is. It's basically the desert.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was like, where's this place?
And it seemed like it was like really close to the border of
Yeah,
Mexico.
yeah. I don't know if it was I think I forget. I was looking at it on a map. I can't remember exactly where it was near, but it was basically middle of nowhere, essentially. But yeah, so that's where apparently Amir is. And so Athena's like asking what's there, and Bobby explains how there's a migrant encampment, and Amir apparently volunteers there with a group a couple weeks a year that provides food and medical assistance. And Athena asks Bobby if he can wait, and Bobby says how like he has to make amends now, and tells her that he loves her, that he will call her from the road. And I love Athena reminding Bobby that he is not the same man he was 10 years ago, which is true.
Yeah.
Like I think that's very important, and I love that like he has this support with her because like he needed to be
Oh yeah, she's
reminded of that.
Right.
she's got his back.
Oh yeah.
And so I love, she never tried to stop him necessarily or anything. She was just advised him to wait, and then when he didn't, was like, all right, well,
Yeah.
good luck.
Yeah.
Remember who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Which
Bobby
is real,
says,
honestly.
yeah, and Bobby says how he doesn't think that matters to Amir, and Athena says how she needs it to matter to him, which I love. And they kiss, and then he leaves, and I love them. Just the way that like Athena supports Bobby, like I love it. Well, they support each other, but like I feel like in this moment it's important for her supporting him.
Well, and from the beginning of the season, when there was that concern of like, did we rush into the marriage? Some of those questions were coming up because it's been several years since they got married to have a honeymoon, and it didn't, obviously the cruise ship disaster happened. And so I think this was almost needed for both of them to kind of be reminded that they do truly care about each other. And not that we as the fans didn't know that they do. And this is like one of the first times she's really had to take a step back in his recovery and his alcoholism recovery to let him do what he needs to do on this journey, but still be there for him, much like Carlos has to do with TK.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I just love how this season has been with Athena. Like it's been a pretty Athena heavy season, and also like I just love watching their relationship.
Yeah, agreed. So then we see Bobby pull up to the encampment, and one of the volunteers asks him like, "Oh, do you have supplies in your truck?" And Bobby says no, and he's like saying, "Oh, I'm here to find Amir. He's a volunteer." And she like asked who is asking. He's like, "My name's Bobby," and she asks him if he's a cop, and it says, "You look like a cop," and that was funny. I'm just like, yeah. And he's like, no, I'm a firefighter. And he shows his like ID, and he says, but I'm not here like on official capacity. And she then asks, like, why are you looking for Amir? And Bobby's like, oh, it's a personal matter, and he just needs to speak with him. And she explains how like they haven't seen him for like a few hours when he brought back his last group, and she doesn't know when he'll be back. And he went out looking for like a pregnant woman and her husband, but hasn't come back. And then of course these people, like somebody brings these people here. Amir hasn't been seen. They don't know where he is. And Bobby, like, so Bobby helps them and stuff. And they have like extremely limited resources. So he's like, "Oh, do you have like an IV?" And they're like, "No." And so
I know, they kind of looked at him like, "Do you think we're like this fancy clinic?"
yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
And I did look it up. It is right on the border of US and Mexico.
That's what
California.
I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So there's people crossing the borders and coyotes.
Yep. Know about that. Which I have a whole note on that. But anyways, so yeah, there is like a clinic, but it's like I forget minutes, and then like they have a shuttle that goes there, and then like this guy has this nasty chest wound, and you're just like, oh great. And then yeah, another episode of Coyotes, and you're just like, because the last one was during the snowstorm in Lone Star.
We haven't dealt with any of that on 911 before.
No.
So
which I'm actually really surprised about, being that it's a sanctuary city.
Yeah.
We didn't deal with it more, but I guess if it was a San Diego base, so I would expect to have seen more of it. But I guess LA is a little further away. It's a couple of hours from the border.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Like when we saw Lone Star, it was like, yep, that makes sense.
Because it's Texas.
Right.
Like Texas is Texas.
Yeah.
Texas is Texas.
that's a good point.
And this ain't Texas. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Yeah, no, we love it. Yeah, and after after Bobby like helps them, he one of the volunteers gives them like directions to like of how to find Amir, and so Bobby goes on his way, and it's like, okay, here we go. Like it's like you probably shouldn't go out there alone, but we have nobody to send you, and Bobby's like, I'll be okay.
Yeah, it's a firefighter. He got it.
Yeah.
Never mind. He's not really equipped to run into cartel-aligned coyotes, but you know, we'll worry about that.
I mean, I never really thought about this, but like if I'm thinking about anybody in the 118, I'm like sort of not really worried about Bobby. I feel like he can handle himself. But if we were sending, I don't know, say Buck out there, I'd be a little bit more worried.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little thought.
He's just he's good at his job and all that, but I think he just would not look around him before running into a situation. We already know this.
I know he's helped them with medical like EMT stuff, but I don't feel, of all of them, Buck is I think the least medically trained. I think Eddie, Hen, or Chim going out there would have like no problem because
I'm not even thinking about the medical standpoint. I'm just thinking about him going out there alone with
the
all
recklessness of it.
I don't know.
Buck would have been right there beside Bobby, I tell you that.
That's true. That is so true.
This has been the season of Bobby acting like his son.
It's true.
Gee, I wonder where Buck gets it.
Yeah. Then we get this flashback. Bobby's parents are fighting apparently, and apparently Tim was drunk at 8 a.m. So we're seeing like this.
Yep.
And so like the fighting is like bad, and both Bobby and his older brother, like Charlie, see it, and his mother Anne wants to take them to her sister's to stay there for a while. And Charlie is like going with their mom, and Bobby like does not want to leave his dad. Like Bobby and like Bobby's like
He's
very
so
much
loyal.
on his dad's side. Like he's very much like he doesn't understand like why he's like to his brother, I don't get why you're so mean to dad. He's a hero. Bobby idolizes his dad. And Charlie
he's
makes
so young.
Yeah, which
Like,
at that age, especially with like any parent that would like be like that, like you idolize. So it makes sense why he's like that. And but like then Charlie makes some comment of like how Bobby's head is so far up their dad's ass, and it's not like he will remember being a hero or something like that. And Tim slaps him, which we're starting to see certain things, and then Anne says that's why we're leaving, and Bobby runs to his dad, and Bobby says how like his dad needs him, so he's gonna stay here. And it's definitely interesting seeing these flashbacks and getting this backstory. Like I'm happy we're all getting this backstory. It's funny because like when people are talking about this episode online, they're like, man, I would have thought that Bobby would have had a good childhood.
It's interesting because he's really never mentioned his childhood in a way that made you think there's anything behind it.
Right.
Like, we know he was an ice skater. We know he played
I
lawn darts
know.
with his brother. We know he's a third or fourth generation firefighter. Like, it's very interesting
I know,
how
yes.
different it is.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what I mentioned at the beginning. I was like, wow, we've got a lot of answers that we've been wanting to know for a long time. Like, we wanted to know more about his family and his backstory and his history. Because we've only gotten a very small handful of things about
Right.
him.
Especially when it was mentioned that he was third or fourth generation firefighter. I was like, why aren't we exploring this? So to finally see it explored is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and honestly, because of how it's been referred to and everything, I really wonder if he even really acknowledges like the bad stuff, or if he really knows it was bad, or if he doesn't really think about it. I really wonder what his own perspective is on his child. There's no flashbacks. We didn't really see him speak about it.
Well, and I kind of feel like that's what the next 2 episodes are going to be.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah.
episode 9 is also like Bobby heavy.
And there, like, even there's a scene in the promo where Athena's saying like she's concerned about her husband, and I feel like
how this ends, this episode ends.
Yeah, so I think the flashbacks he was having through this episode was building up to what's going to happen in 9 and 10, and we're going to get a lot of more answers as to how he's truly feeling about that. And I know a lot of people, especially when they experience like domestic violence or abuse in the home, like they don't like, they say like, well, I don't want to be like my father. I don't want to hit my kids. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And they try to change things. And so I feel like this is how we're kind of build up to that. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm really glad to know that Bobby has a brother, and to see that Bobby's a younger brother.
I would have never expected that, but also I never really thought about it, so I don't know.
Which I think is cool. It's something he can relate to with Buck being the youngest. And
that's true.
Yeah.
And I think he sees the rough childhood that Buck had, you know, over the years of what he's learned. And I think he's starting, I think I'm so pro like Bobby being Buck's like pseudo dad. Like I love that.
Yeah.
And I think I'm excited to have Buck and see what his reaction to some of this is going to be. You know, he's going to find out about it.
Oh, everyone's going to find out about it eventually. The way things roll.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like how that unravels. But then we see Bobby is driving to Findemere. He sees this truck that's on the side of the road, and then he turns around, he knocks on the window, and then he opens the door, and then like because there's no answer, and he sees this guy passed out on the wheel, and then we see this tattoo, and I'm like, is this what I think it is? And then like this nasty gash like on his like essentially his side chest area.
And this guy's dead. Like he's gone.
Yeah. And he takes a picture of the dude because obviously there's no service or anything. And he just goes back to his truck, and then he's on his way. And then Bobby shows up and he parks at this place or whatever, and he goes in and he's looking around, and like outside he sees a blood trail, and then Bobby goes inside with a tire iron because he's like, yeah, this is look at a little sketch. And he's looking around, seeing more blood, and then next thing you know, we see Amir have a knife to his neck, which we saw in the promo, but I'm just like, okay, what's happening? And then he's like, no, it's like Bobby Nash, and Amir goes, Nash, and he lets him go, and I'm like, oh, okay. And he
see, I feel such vindication on my point that I made last episode. I'm just gonna say he only yelled that because he didn't know it was Bob. He was not actually trying to hurt Bob. I'm just saying I feel vindicated.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say the coast is clear, but I feel like it could be.
Right. Well, he realized he was a friendly and not, some psycho.
He thought the cartel had come back.
Yeah.
Essentially, which we find out more about soon.
Yeah. And then he asks what he's doing there, and Bobby says how he was looking for him and asks what happened, and apparently Amir got shot, and so Bobby like has him sit down, he checks it out, and Amir says how like that guy, the guy that shot him, firebombed his car, and Amir got him good. And Bobby tells him like, yeah, he didn't make it very far, he's dead. And but like as like all this is happening, then like more of the coyotes, they show up, and so like they have to like go hide, and so they end up hiding behind these rocks, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is happening.
This is oh gosh, I'm loving this storyline, by the way.
Oh yeah, agreed. I was like relieved that like it, it's so far, because anything can happen. That they didn't go with like the stereotypical storyline with Amir, like he has to get revenge, and like now that he knows who Bobby is, he has to go after him. Like so far, like I'm like glad we're not going for that like stereotype, because that's definitely like one of the stereotypes they could have done.
As I said last episode, I always thought that would have been an immense injustice to Amir and to his part in the story. So I don't, obviously, we're going to talk about the rest of the episode and everything, but, I think largely his part might be over in this
Yeah, I honestly don't
story.
even know if he's gonna be in any more episodes, so I'm not even. So I don't, like. I feel like just on based on we got, and we'll obviously talk about more that it's over.
Yeah.
But
Well, we can speculate about that later, obviously, but
oh yeah,
I feel like this was just a setup for the rest of the season. So yeah, but you called it. I actually thought there would be more between the two of them. So I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah.
I'm honestly just surprised I was so right on my Honestly, I didn't think it was those circumstances, but I'm just surprised I was right in my assessment.
Right.
Does explain why you kept seeing all the clips of him out in the middle of nowhere.
I know. I was like, I don't know. Like, I didn't know what I thought about it at the time, but like where the heck is Bobby?
Right.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. God, I love this
Sure.
episode. I'm just gonna say that. I love this episode.
I know, same. I will sing its praises forever. But then we get this flashback of Bobby at home with his dad. He's like making dinner, and he is making his dad a drink, which makes me more sad for him. And he
Did we talk about the fact little Bobby had like encouraged his dad to drink
I didn't think
in an
we
earlier
mentioned
scene?
it.
Yeah, no,
at the party
was
after he got the award, his dad told him to go ahead and drink a.
Yeah, I said that.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember it, so I was just
Yeah,
like,
because he threw up right immediately after.
Yeah, his fire buddies were there. And the guys were there.
like, no wonder. We're just gonna say no wonder on a few things.
Yeah, but yeah, like just that makes me sad. And he mentions how like his mom called and he wanted to talk to Tim, and he asks like, "Oh, did you tell her I was working?" And Bobby mentions like that she already called the firehouse looking for him, so she knew he wasn't there, and they told her he was sick because apparently Bobby told them he was sick. And
Because the guy doesn't even know what day it is.
yeah, he's like, is it Monday? And Bobby's like, no, it's Tuesday. And his dad realizes that he like messed up, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. Stuff. And I'm just like, oh, yeah.
His dad is spiraling down this drain, and it's so sad to see how much Bobby cares and wants to take care of him, because it's coming from such an innocent place. His dad's his hero.
Yeah,
it's like,
it does. It makes me really sad for him. It does. But then we see Mir and Bobby realize that the coyotes are finally leaving, and Amir asks Bobby like if they're firebombing his truck or just stealing it. Bobby's like, yeah, they're just stealing it. And he is standing like on those rocks trying to get reception. And Amir is like, what are you doing out here? Like why are you here? And Bobby says how he told him he was looking for him. And Amir asks like why, and Bobby says the ninth step, I owe you an amends. And Amir is like, so you followed me out here to the desert? And Bobby's like, yeah. And Amir's like, you think that earned you something? And Bobby says, like, no, he just needed Amir to know he heard everything he said the other night, and Amir thanks him and says, "I feel seen," which obviously he's not being serious if you know.
Right. Definitely heard the sarcasm in that statement.
Yeah. Yeah, just clear that up just in case somebody's like, wait, because they're only that one person, which I get him being like so sarcastic about it because like it's understandable. And he says like he feels seen mostly because people are always staring at him, and I do feel bad for him because like
Yeah.
it's never great being the person that people always look at. Like, and Bobby knows that there's nothing he can say to make up for what happened. Amir tells him to like stop, and he says, "Let me be clear, Captain." He says how he doesn't need anything from Bobby. He knows that Bobby thinks that he came to the meeting to call him out. He didn't. Amir says how he was sizing him up. He wanted to understand how someone who was responsible for so much loss, so much pain was able to carry on pretty damn easy, it seems. Which it isn't. It took Bobby so long to even get to this point. Like,
but also it's clear why Amir thought that, because in the AA meeting, like Bobby was speaking about like how far his life has come, about how like he was speaking about the positive aspect. So Amir only heard this guy got to walk away scot-free.
Yeah.
He doesn't know the trauma and everything that Bobby has struggled with.
right.
That's
Yeah,
true.
like he doesn't know Bobby season one, which is the hard part about all this because he's only seeing Bobby talk about like how good his life is and how he feels blessed. And Amir's even says like, "No, I heard everything you said too, like talking about how blessed you've been. That's why I stood up." He felt like that required an answer, and it's like you're only hearing like just a little bit on his life because he's overcome so much, and he's in a totally different place. And like I get both sides, obviously, but like it's just like, man. And Bobby says like how he gets that, and like yeah, Bobby lost like so much, and it like takes so much for him just knowing where he came from to be blessed and to be able to allow himself to feel that. And Amir's like, good, now get this. You can keep your amends. He didn't ask for it, and it doesn't mean a damn thing to him. And Amir is explaining how to get out of there, and Bobby asks if he's supposed to just leave him there. And Amir says how he like killed the man. Bobby didn't, and Bobby says like you didn't really have a choice. And Amir says, I didn't say I did. And Bobby tells Amir that he needs to get up and they need to walk. And Amir says how he honestly doesn't think he can because the infection he has from the bullet being inside is already starting to set in. And Bobby asks if he will let him, let him like help Amir. And Amir's like, I don't know what's worse, dying out here in the shade or letting your ass save me. Which I'm like, yep.
Yeah,
That's fair. I get it. I do. Um, and Bobby says, given where things are at, there's a pretty good chance he'll fail either way. And Amir's like, yeah, now you're just trying to cheer me up. And so he gets Amir walking, which I like the dialogue that they had. Like I liked like kind of Amir just speaking everything, like just speaking whatever he had to say, and it was fair. Like both sides were fair, and I liked the other perspective because we've never gotten this before.
What I just loved was how respectful they both were to each other.
Yeah,
They weren't
yeah.
taking unnecessary shots. They weren't trying to be assholes to each other. Amir had complete validity in how he felt and everything he was saying, and Bobby never undermined it. He counteracted it a little bit and being like, well, that's not everything. But like they were being very respectful adults about it all, and I'm like, I feel like we don't get that kind of exchange a lot when there's been a like wrong towards another person, and the person who did the wrong was a main character. I feel like we don't get that. Again, I feel like the character will get villainized a lot, so I'm really liking how they're handling this.
Yeah, that I
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
true.
That's a good point. Yeah, I liked how they didn't villainize this whole conversation or just villainize Amir in general, just because Bobby was able to have his side, Amir was able to tell his side. They were able to have this conversation while it being like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you," and like it was just good.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out.
For
I
sure.
like the rest of what happens in the episode, like only furthers that for me. Like I am very
Oh
pleased.
yeah. And then we get like this flashback. Bobby has to call 911 because there's a fire in their kitchen. Poor young Bobby, because he calls 911 and explains that there's a fire in the kitchen, and when he says like, "Oh, my name's Bobby Nash," the dispatcher is like, "Did you just say Nash?" So like clearly, obviously,
I'm
hi-
curious how like small town he grew up in.
I don't know. I feel like it was big enough, but also like small enough. Like I don't know. It's hard to say, but I don't feel like it was tiny, tiny. I feel like it was a big enough, but obviously like his dad's name, like people wouldn't know him, especially with being that he got like awards and he was a captain. I feel like he's just known, so that kind of makes sense how that's the response, I guess.
Yeah, I'm still getting like small suburbs vibe though. Like
Yeah, I
so
saw the sign on, or when they were showing the award ceremony, there was a sign in the back or a flag in the back with the name of the city on it, and it seemed like it was a pretty small city.
I know. I'm
yeah,
curious to
because I
like
know where
look that up.
he later lives in St. Paul. Like that's when he's an adult. So I'm like, did he move there with his mom when after everything happens? Or like did he move there later to get away from everything? I have a lot of questions. I hope
I
we
have more
continue to get them
questions.
answered.
Like they answer like a few questions and then you get like a billion more questions.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh yeah, and his dad is asleep, and one of the firefighters, like, because Bobby's trying to wake his dad, and then one of the firefighters, who obviously Bobby knows, throws water in his face, so now he's awake, and he asks, like, "What are you doing here?" And he sees that Bobby trying to make cookies, or one of the firefighters tells him that Bobby was trying to make cookies using the broiler, which he's a young kid, he doesn't know better.
Right? Exactly.
He doesn't.
And
He was trying. He was probably doing it for his dad too, to make his dad happy. Like,
yeah, he was. And Tim gets mad and Bobby says like he'll clean it up and Tim is like, "Bet your ass you will." And one of his firefighters says like, "It's not the kids' fault there's no fire extinguishers in here." And he says the reason there's not one in there is because his mother apparently thinks that they look bad. So it's on like the back porch or back deck or whatever. And I'm like, that's concerning, but okay.
Right.
yeah, I sort of call bullshit on that. Even if it was true, like, still, a firefighter knows better.
Right.
Yeah, and the book Bobby made was like basically ruined, and he tells his dad, "Oh, I can fix it." And Tim yanks the book from his hands and is yelling at him about calling 911, saying, like, they keep a record of it, and tells Bobby that, like, if he's fired, it's his fault, and throws the book in the trash. And I'm just like, poor Bobby, because that is just like, it breaks my heart.
Yeah. I was
I
not
mean,
happy with
also, what does this man think he's gonna get fired for? Okay, like having a fire in his kitchen. That happens.
The fire's a fire. It could happen to anyone.
Yeah.
What do you think is happened? Like, is it because you're clearly not sick and you should probably be working? Like, I don't know.
Well,
I
this
just
man
kind of want to
is
smack the
drunk
shit out
off
of
his
him.
ass, so he has no logic.
Yeah, I want to smack the shit out of this man.
I know. Yeah, for real. So let me see. Bobby and Amir are walking, and Amir, like, while they're walking, collapses. And so Bobby has to keep him moving, and they eventually get closer to the road, and they yell for like a passing by truck to stop. And the guy, like, gets out. Apparently, his name is Herman, and he offers to drive them back to his place where he has a working landline. And I'm like, okay, this
Listen,
is
I was sus from the beginning.
Me too.
I should have been, but like at first I was like, oh, this is a sweet old guy. But then like once they got in the car, I was like, okay, this is getting sus. I'm a little nervous. And
Mhm.
so
It was partially because we weren't far enough through the episode yet. I was like, there's no way they're getting rescued this early. And also just something was wrong about him. I was like, something
yeah.
doesn't feel
Yeah, it
right.
wasn't until they got in the car where I was like, okay, this is getting weird. And so Bobby sees this picture and the guy looks familiar, which is I think this is when I started cluing in it and asks if
Mhm.
that's his son. And he says, no, it's his grandson. And Bobby, of
Yeah, he
course,
had that spider tattoo,
recognize him.
spider web
Yeah,
tattoo.
Robbie feels that that's familiar, obviously. And this guy is like, okay, this guy is being too nice because he's like, oh, I have waters on the floorboards. Like, grab yourself one. And then this guy gets on the radio and he's talking in Spanish. And this guy is like asking them, like, oh, have you ate? Obviously, they haven't ate. And like, I have food at my place. And then Amir tells Bobby that they'll be waiting for them when they get back to his place. And the guy was like, you speak Spanish? I love when that happens in shows where it's like,
Oh my
you
God.
speak Spanish?
Mhm.
And
I
Amir
love it
says like how
so
he
much.
understands it. What he doesn't understand is why he's in business with him when their poison killed his son, because he mentioned how his son died from like a drug overdose or something.
Mhm.
Like 5 years
Yeah.
ago. And this guy tries to pull a gun and Bobby tells him to like stop the truck and then he pulls the gun on them and then basically the truck crashes, it like flips over and stuff and I'm just like,
Because Bobby grabbed the wheel.
I'm gonna say, yeah,
yes.
doesn't Bobby reach to grab the wheel or something?
Yes. So yeah, that was something. I'm just like, can the members of the 118 stop getting in cars or
Oh
stop
my
letting
gosh.
people
I
drive
know,
them
right?
places that you do not freaking know? Stranger danger, people. Guys,
Yeah,
didn't you
stranger
roll the
danger
teacher
for sure.
guy?
Well, granted, they didn't really have many options.
I shouldn't talk though. I've
But
done that
like,
before, but it was that's a story for another day. But I went to school. The person I just didn't. It ended up being safe. I actually made a good decision, and oh, that's kind of funny. But yeah, stranger danger. I mean it. And we see young Bobby. Like obviously he's upset with everything, and I just want to give him a hug.
Right.
Like
baby.
and
He's just sitting there crying.
and his dad's knocking on his door, asking him to open up, and Bobby's like, no, go away. And he tries to apologize, but Bobby puts on these headphones, and his dad, like, is drinking more and says how he thinks they can fix the book. And then he's like walking around, stumbling while drinking. And then he trips and he hits his head. And I'm like, yep, that's not good. And Bobby like has his eyes closed and he has the headphones on in his room, so like he has no idea that nothing happened. He didn't hear anything. He doesn't suspect anything. So it's just like, oh, that's literally terrible.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
poor Bobby. And current day, they wake up in the truck crash. Like literally the transitions of them going from scene to scene was literally seamless. I'm just like,
Oh
we love
yeah.
it.
It
Yeah,
was
their editing
so
team
well
did really
done.
well.
And he like so Bobby wakes up first, then he tries to wake up Amir and tries to get them out of there. And of course, when Bobby gets out and he's getting Amir out, he like screams in pain. I'm just like, yep, that's the worst. And he
Mhm.
manages to get like some whatever fabric that was in the car and to make a pulley system, I said like a pulley so he can pull Amir because that is
Mhm.
the only way they're getting somewhere. And so here we go.
This all
This
got a lot
is
worse.
it's so powerful how they did this because here we've got
Yes.
this whole episode, we've got Amir basically saying, I don't want your amends, I don't want this. And then what's Bobby doing? Basically helping him survive, like rescuing him. And that's in a way like amends, like he's saving him in a way that he couldn't save him before.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love it. But then we get young Bobby waking up the next morning and he's like looking for his dad. So he's like, Dad, Dad. And eventually he finds him passed out. And then he like tries to he like flips him over. And of course he doesn't wake up. And I'm just like, I feel so bad for
Like
Bobby
his
because
eyes
like
are
Mhm.
open. There's blood everywhere. It's obvious.
Right.
that he's dead.
And like us as viewers, we knew once he fell that like, yeah, that wasn't good and that was like fatal. Like just seeing like Bobby find his dad, that is like heartbreaking, especially like
Oh, so bad.
it's always sad when you see in shows like someone has like some sort of like fight with their parent or something, or like they don't say like anything as like their last word, or they don't have any
Right.
like it's not good, and then like something so devastating happens and it's so sad. Like
Yeah, they didn't get to say goodbye, or their last words were not pleasant. Yeah, it's tough.
yeah, it's sad. Oh, like Bobby was obviously dragging Amir. They're in the desert and this is like not pleasant. And then so like eventually he passes out. And so Bobby is like waking up and he sees a car pull up, but he doesn't know like, oh, is it the coyotes coming for them? So like he hides his face. He puts his head down. But then we hear the volunteer's voice, which thank God for subtitles, because now we finally know her name is Fernanda. Because I was like, what is her name the whole episode?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that was like me rewatching the whole thing and be like, okay, here we go. And then she tells Bobby that it's all right. She says that they got them and they all got them, which I loved it. Like, we got you, we all got you kind of moment. Like, it was so
And like
good.
it was a whole group of them.
I know. It takes a
And
village, it does.
It does.
It was so sweet.
It was, yeah, it was such a good moment. And then like directly after we see him in the hospital and Fernanda is like asking Bobby if he thinks he should stay the night and let the doctors take care of him. And Bobby says like all the doctors are gonna do is prescribe fluids, NSAIDs, to prevent swelling and antihistamines if his skin starts to itch, all of which he can do himself. And she's like, I always heard the doctors were the worst patients. And Bobby's like, whoever said that never met a firefighter, which I loved that line.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
so
that was such
freaking
a good
true,
line.
especially for their 118 family. Damn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that is very true. And we've seen Bobby be a terrible patient on many occasions. So specifically for him, this is just him.
Well, yeah, when
Including
he
last season when he tried to
Yeah.
wheel himself into the elevator after the bridge collapse. We didn't
I
see that, but
forgot
we heard
about
Athena
that.
say about that.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Escapees.
or then
Mhm.
when he rescued May and she demanded that he get a CT scan because he didn't want
Oh, yeah.
to.
We love to see it. And then we hear Athena say to Bobby, and he gets up to hug her. Like, she's like, Bobby. And Bobby's like, I said on the phone, I'm fine. And Athena said she needed to see for herself, as you should, Queen.
Right?
Mhm.
And he introduces Fernanda to Athena and says she is actually a cop. And I loved that. It was like, she's actually a cop. And I was like, damn right she is. And Athena realizes like she's the one that found him and says she doesn't know the right words right now, but thanks her and hugs her. That was so sweet. And
Yeah.
like Fernanda then explains how it wasn't just her. The people Amir saved from the Kaidos, they insisted on going to find him. So she just went along for the ride, and Bobby says, and like they figured out like how to find them. And she said how like they saw the blood trail in the diner and figured they cut across the service road. Once they found the truck, it didn't take long to get to them. And then we like the guy Herman apparently like shortly after they found him, which he had minor injuries, and Bobby like thought that he was dead, and they're like, no, he
Yeah,
was
I
just
was sus about it the moment he didn't check the pulse. I was like, oh, they don't have confirmation he's dead.
yeah.
I thought about that actually really early on, but I kind of forgot about it until they brought it up again.
Yeah, honestly, I forgot about him. I was just like, they just tried to get out there real quick because like this guy is scary, but apparently this dude was flown to a different hospital, one with a secure ward, and this makes me nervous that he might come back because obviously, if you guys remember the Lone Star one, that guy, the dirty sheriff or
Dirty
whatever,
cop.
he came back.
Yeah.
So I had that
Yeah.
thought going around in my brain. That's how my brain was spinning because I was like, I'm a little worried that he might come back.
Well, I wasn't worried about it until now.
Sorry, guys.
I'm
Well,
also worried. I was thinking about it earlier.
okay, I'm glad. I'm not the only one thinking that. Just I think that what started my thought process is I was like, okay, obviously nothing's gonna happen with Amir. So I'm like, somebody else has to come up. And I'm like, this is the only other logical explanation I have. And obviously with the promo, we know certain things happen. And I'm like, that is not random. That is definitely something. Which obviously
Yeah.
will clarify more, but I'm just saying, this is how my brain is working currently.
I have theories, but I'll get to them a little later in the episode.
I
Right.
can't wait. I can't
Yeah.
wait. And so then Bobby sees Amir being rolled into the hospital, and Athena asks if that's him, and Bobby says he'll just need a minute. And so Bobby knocks on Amir's hospital door, and Amir thought Bobby would be long gone and like back home with his pretty wife, as he says. Which we love that. And Bobby said how he just wanted to check in on him first. And Amir says how Bobby has made his amends. He saved Amir's life and he can go now. And Bobby says that's not exactly how it works. And Amir is like, please tell me you're not gonna keep coming back here until he forgives him, because that's. And then Bobby cuts him off and says he doesn't expect his forgiveness. That's not why he came here looking for him. Bobby wanted Amir to know he didn't just walk away from that fire. He carried it with him every day and night since. And he knows that there's nothing he can do to erase the damage he's done to Amir or any of the other families. He can't give them back his wife. He can't take away Amir's pain. And all Bobby can do it is tell him he thinks about them every day. And Bobby says Ayana Casey, 34 years old, only child of Martha and Jamal Harris, beloved wife of Amir Casey, the 57th person to die in the fire because of me. And Amir asks if he really thinks if he deserves the second chance. Bobby's like, I do not, and says he should have died that night in the fire or one of the many nights after, trying to correct that mistake, but he's still here and he can't make anything better, so he'll live his life just trying not to make things worse. And that makes me like sad, because it's like all those nights trying to correct that mistake, and like we obviously saw that in season 1 and just even in more instances, and that makes me sad. But like I like the sentiment that he says, like just try not to do anything, not trying to make things worse, just trying to go on about his life and trying to do good, which I feel like he's done tons of good, and that at least counts for something.
I don't know if there's such a thing as balancing the scales, but
yeah, which is what he was trying to do, and that doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work like that, but I do think that the good he does will always count.
Right.
Just like the bad that he did will always still be there. They are not mutually exclusive, and one does not cancel out the other.
Right. Exactly. And Amir explained how he sold cars before the fire, and after surviving that, he thought that maybe he should be doing something else, something more. And Bobby says to repay your second chance, and Amir says to do what he couldn't do that night. And so that's why he became a nurse, which I think that's like a beautiful story. And stuff, and that happens for like a lot of people. And every time he walks through those hospital doors, he's trying to save his wife, and he can't help but wonder who Bobby has been trying to save. And I like, it wasn't important to get this, but I sort of wish he was able to tell his true story. It wouldn't have really prolonged any situation or any of their conversation, but it would have been like nice, even if we didn't see that, for him to be enabled to tell a story. But this like scene provoked so much emotion. Honestly, in this episode at random moments, I was literally crying for Bobby. I was just like, Bobby, like literally.
I actually was surprised I didn't cry. I was expecting to, but I definitely was very moved.
I couldn't remember which parts, but like there were several parts that I was just like, oh my god, like,
yeah,
like it was just, oh man. But I love, like, they both killed, like, Peter and Malcolm literally killed this whole episode.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh,
It was
they
really
did so
good.
good.
Like, I know people were like it was mentioned before the episode even aired, but like basically don't expect anybody from 118 to show up, and it's just like, obviously this is a Bobby centric episode. Honestly, I do not care about the 118 today. The only person I care about is
Right.
Bobby.
Yeah, no, and we
Yeah.
got some really awesome answers. And in a way, I'm kind of glad they didn't bring up what Bobby lost, because I don't think Amir would have been open to hearing about it.
Yeah, like,
That wasn't.
even if he was
He didn't.
curious, he didn't want it.
Yeah,
He didn't want, and he didn't have to bear Bobby's burden
right.
because that's Bobby's to deal with. He didn't need
Right.
to know.
And if he wanted to know, he would have just asked.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you know, and if if Amir wanted to know more and he did any digging about news or stuff, I'm sure there would have been, firefighter loses wife and children and,
Yeah,
fire.
it would have been out. It's out there. It was just,
Yeah.
I was like, it wouldn't prolong the story or
Yeah.
given any depth to the story, but it was something I thought about, is all.
Yeah. I had a brief moment of deep thought.
Yeah. But then we see Bobby after his dad died, and one of the firefighters says like how his mom's on her way, but it's gonna take her a while to get there. And that one of the firefighters is like, "Do you want to go to the station?" And Bobby's like, "No." And then they want one of them to say, he's like, "No," which I didn't think about this at the time, but somebody made a video about this today, and that's a very good point. Okay, he's a minor. One of them technically was supposed to stay with him. Granted, we didn't see police or anything, so somebody could have been at least outside, but like that just, I didn't think about this until somebody brought it up, where I was just like, wait, that's actually true. Like somebody like they should have just left him alone. Now there's a lot of
I
things
don't
we could have
know.
not seen.
I've seen some debate on this online. Because people have been up in arms and been like, "Oh my God, they should not have left the minor alone. Like, what were the firefighters thinking?" I have seen it pointed out that this was also taking place during a different time
That's
when
true.
latchkey
That's
kids
true.
were more of a thing. Like, it was very common for kids to be alone while waiting for a parent, not necessarily in these situations, but waiting for mom or dad to come home from work once they came home from school. It was a different era. There weren't as many concerns about safety or leaving your child alone. So I have seen that pointed out. Do I still think, a firefighter should have waited? Absolutely, but I don't think it was quite as much of a concern as it would be nowadays.
That is true. I didn't think
Yeah.
about that when I heard somebody bring that up, but also like this isn't like just leaving your kid alone while you run to the store or you go somewhere for like a few hours. This is
Yeah.
like after
Yeah.
a trauma. Even then, you would think somebody would just even stay outside the door. I'm not saying like be like sitting there next to him, but like also thinking that it is a different time, like it sort
Yeah.
of makes sense, but it's
Yeah, this
also
is
like
the 60s or
it goes either
70s.
way. It goes either way.
It does. I mean, in
Yeah.
the 60s and 70s in Minnesota, you're probably not really too concerned about that. I also feel like the firefighters themselves may have left, but like you said, like I'm sure there's a police officer or somebody out there. Like I think just because they knew him, they were giving him options, like so he didn't have to stay at home waiting for his mom.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Those are just like interesting things. I'm like, wait, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And like they say how sorry they are and they leave, and it is like sad, and then he sees the book and he pours himself a drink, and this is when I'm like, oh, and you see him look at it and I'm like, is he going to drink it? And like what's gonna happen? And he starts to, and then that's how it ends. And I'm just like,
I was
so
like, what?
I think that
I wasn't
made
shocked.
perfect sense, actually.
Yeah, I did too.
We already know
Because
what
it was
happened
like,
with
yep,
Bob.
that generational trauma, which by the way, the show handles generational trauma really well.
Yeah.
But also like that is how a lot of kids get started in bad habits, is partially because they have access to those things. And also if their parents have a bad issue with those things.
Yeah. I feel like then it was more common, especially like drinking younger, especially since at that time the drinking age was 18. So,
My
and even
my
even now, like drinks are allowed with your parents' supervision.
yeah, at home.
So
yeah.
at home, yeah.
My dad grew up in central Minnesota in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and he was smoking by the age of 10 behind his parents' back, and they knew when he was 16. And he
Yeah.
continued to smoke the rest of his life. And the drinking started, when he was a teenager. So I'm not surprised this is the storyline that happened. Just because I'm like, yeah, this is a lot like the drinking stuff. But
Right.
I'm curious if he did take a drink, only because we know that Bobby does in the future, and as a young adult, have alcohol problem. But I'm just curious if that is when it started, or if he tried and didn't like it, and then but later on got a taste for it. So
Right, because like early in the episode he like vomited after, and then this time he like took it, but we don't know what happened after that. Like
right.
if it was just that one, and like if he kept it down or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like what happened when the mom eventually came? Like, was he drunk because he was like years old?
Yeah.
And like, yeah. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see if we're gonna get more flashbacks in the next episode, or if we're gonna get more elaboration.
Yeah.
Clearly this is still building up something. This is not resolved.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't see it getting resolved this season. I definitely think this is something they're going to bring it into season 8.
Yeah. Well, there are multiple different points that I'm talking about, like that didn't get resolved, but I'm curious to see which of them they'll resolve and which of them they'll take into season 8, because they can do that because they know we're getting season 8.
We have a season 8. I'm happy about that.
I'm very happy about that, because it's like, oh yeah, it's only going to be a few months after this.
However, I do know that has led to a lot of speculation online that we might end on a cliffhanger, because they know they'll be able to do that.
I'm okay with that. It's only a couple months. It's like June, July, August, September.
Wait, have we got a confirmed date they're coming back? I don't know that
fall.
The fall.
All I knew is that
so it's like September.
Lone Star was supposed to come. I thought Lone Star was coming back in the fall. No, it's coming back in spring. That was my bad.
No, it's coming back in fall.
Both of them will be in the fall.
Both of them are coming? I think I might have only heard about Lone Star coming back in the fall.
No, they're both coming back in the fall. It was confirmed last week.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah, then I'd be okay with a cliffhanger. Like, obviously, I don't love cliffhangers, but
yeah, 911's going to continue to be on Thursdays. Lone Star is going to be on Mondays.
Oh, well, that's going to wreak havoc on her.
I know.
On our schedule.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that one out. I think. Well, and we had such a shorter season. I think these couple of episodes might actually have been what could have been like season 7, like mid-season finale type episodes, to move into like the second half of season 7 if we'd have had it like a normal season. So I'm looking forward to season 8.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I just don't want them to like in a snap just change it and like resolve it really quickly, because these are things you can't just resolve in like one episode. So I'm glad we get kind of this couple of episode arc.
Right. Yeah. I like how they're starting to like set up more storylines. I don't know. I really liked this episode, and like it was just really important. Like a lot of things were answered. We got like these young Bobby like flashbacks, which I was like, oh my god, we're getting this. When I saw the first one, I was like, okay, here we go. And that's exciting. And like before the episode aired, some people were like, are you kidding me? We're getting another Bobby episode. I'm like, I've literally never heard anybody complain about getting a Bobby episode. Like, what is going on? Are these like new people to the fandom? Which honestly I think they might have been. So I'm just like, they're like, the cruise ship was already enough. And I'm like, that was 3 episodes and that wasn't just Bobby.
I think in case there's anyone new that needs to hear this, Buck is not the main character, or the sole main character.
Agreed.
Tommy and Eddie are not sole main characters. Tommy's not even technically the main character. It's not about them solely. We do have a full other main cast who also have storylines, and Bobby's storyline is important. We've already had Major Buck, Jim, Hen, You know, I could do with some more Major Hen storylines. Just gonna say that. Eddie, like we've had major storylines for everybody, including Athena. Like, let's continue exploring Bobby a little bit more.
Yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It has. This was the real Bobby Begins episode, though.
Yeah, I was feeling like that. I'm really surprised they hadn't continued with the Bobby Begins. Like we have Bobby Begins again. What would this one been?
I was calling it Bobby Begins.
Bobby Begins
again. I like
But-
that though.
Or Bobby 1.0.
No, I like my version. Bobby Begins again.
Again. Yeah.
And I'll take another again, guys.
Yeah. No, I'm totally
Again.
down for it. Actually, I feel like with the length of the series extending as far as it's gone, I'm looking forward to them digging more into all of the characters' backstories more.
Yeah.
Buck, I feel like Buck and Eddie are young enough to where their Begins episodes might be slightly different if they did something else in the future. But I feel like Chim, Hen, and Bobby are slightly older, and we got them how they came to the 118. Say that.
Yeah.
But like we don't know a ton. Like I would love to see a Begins episode with Chim, where like when his mom was alive, and
Oh, that would be good. Like, yeah,
that,
like
life, like when he met Kevin and Elise.
I'd love to see, Hen and when she was a child, because I don't think we've had a single child scene with her.
or Eddie. We didn't get child scenes in his.
Same. So
That's true, we
I
didn't.
feel like one of the only characters that there is not really much potential for a continued Begins is Buck.
I agree
Because we
with
already
that.
got his Begins. We got really solid. If anything, I would love to see a couple more flashbacks to his travels, but not in a Begins format, not in this way, just like as a reminiscent.
Yeah.
But
Or
otherwise,
something.
everybody still has more.
Yeah, or something like that comes up on a call and it reminds me of something he did on his travels, or
Even Athena, like, though I don't know how much we could do, because we've gotten a little bit kid, we've gotten a bit adult, and we couldn't, I was just thinking we could do beginning of her relationship with Michael, but they could not bring back Rockman, so they'd have to not show later Michael. I don't know how that works. So
I don't. Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I feel like Buck and Athena, like they could do something, and mostly Buck, I feel like there's nothing they could do that would add on to the story or add anything valuable to the story. So I don't know, because we kind of got like enough. So it's kind of, I don't know what they would add.
yeah, I'm honestly happy leaving both of them where they are.
Yeah.
But I would not be opposed to anyone else getting more.
right.
Agreed. I agree with that for sure.
Yes. But this episode was amazing. I'm glad we got what we got with Bobby. We got a lot of questions answered. We got more. We have now more questions about Bobby.
I know. I'm interested to see like what happens with, the drinking from here as like a kid. Maybe what happens like with his mom and brother. Like obviously his mom comes to get him or whatever, and what happens there, like what happens with his childhood going forward, because obviously this is a very traumatic event for him, and just living with his dad for however much time that was. And I'm interested to see like what even just like his teenage years, like it's very interesting. Like I'm just very curious. And honestly, I have questions like is his mom still around? I'm like curious because she could
She'd be much older now.
She would be much
But she could.
older because Bobby's like in his 50s, maybe early 60s, maybe.
He's mid 50s.
I was just gonna
Because I'm
say
pretty sure he's 55. I'm pretty sure because season 2 he called himself 50.
so. His mom would be possibly in her like 80s, I would say.
I want to know about the brother.
And the brother.
Does he and brother have a relationship of any kind? Which I don't feel like they do.
I feel like they're estranged, but they could bring him back as like an estranged brother. They could make that happen. I'm like interested to see if they would. I hope they do. And now a lot of people are speculating about it, which I'm in.
Which granted, what I don't want is them to do anything too close to Lone Star with Owen and his brother.
Yeah. Well,
there was already still different origins.
It would be hard too, just because the dad's dead. I don't think they would do anything where the brother's sick. I don't know how he could come back or how he could come into Bobby's life, but I feel like I would want that to happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I was very happy with this episode. I was very
for sure.
pleased with how they did everything. I felt very vindicated with how they treated Amir in this. Because I really I never wanted him to be a villain. I was going to be really mad if they made him a villain, and he wasn't. And I was so happy with what they did.
Yeah. I was relieved with where the storyline went, which is good. I was very happy.
So I'm really happy with that. Again, like very happy to get Bobby and young Bobby and learn. And again, he is part of the Traumatized by Shitty Parents Club. It's interesting because a lot of what I'm seeing online talks about how Bobby doesn't just see Buck as his son, he also sees him as a mirror, like a mirror of himself. Because it's very interesting. So I'm like, I don't know, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. I didn't want they didn't leave any crumbs. I didn't want for a single thing in this episode.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I agree.
Except for maybe the opportunity to smack Tim Nash.
Yeah.
We can't have everything in life.
Yeah, like I said, I will never stop singing the praises of this episode because it was so good. Like,
already
good.
top one of the top episodes of this season.
Yeah,
and they've all been so good. But
I know this whole season has been amazing.
I know
they're going to blow it out of the park with the finale. I know they are.
I know. I'm so excited. And I've heard so many things. I'm gonna read what I've heard from people that have like screened the episode of what they've said because like it makes me nervous but also makes me really damn excited.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh yes, we love it. Not very many fan thoughts, but I'll just read. I know like a lot of people said they loved the episode. Good Bobby stuff. Some people are like, I could have lived without it, which I really don't understand. I would love for people that feel that way to elaborate because I really don't understand that. Like, this episode was so good. Like, it was all the Bobby things, like we said that we've been wanting. And I don't understand that. Like, this wasn't a filler episode at all. It was a meant to be episode. I don't know what else to say, but I don't know. There weren't too many things, but
we've been waiting 7 seasons for this kind of,
right?
But not in the way where we've been deprived of it, but in the way that we have been building up to it.
Yeah,
but that's okay. Yeah, as always, if you guys have anything, like if you have thoughts about the episode, you can share them with us. I would love to like even if we don't get too many fan thoughts to like share them like on our socials like when this episode goes up. That's also another fun way just in case you miss it because it's always fun reading them no matter when it is. But now let's talk about
hearing everyone's thoughts.
Yeah, we do. But now let's talk about the promo, and I'm like so excited for this. So we have finally, which is speculated, that they're getting an award for the cruise ship. So the mayor is presenting an award to them, and he says, "Today we honor those members of the LAFD who acted so courageously during the cruise ship disaster. Firefighters, we thank you." And then next Thursday, and then Bobby is saying to Athena, like, everyone thinks we're heroes, and Athena's like, you are, and Bobby says, I'm not, and we see the flashbacks from him, like, during the fire and stuff when it started, and he says how he's not supposed to be here. I should have died in that fire, and that literally makes me so freaking sad. And Athena is talking to Hen, Shem, I believe Maddie's there, and Hen is asking what happened, and Athena says she thinks her husband is in danger. And that could go so many different ways, but Bobby is sleeping, and then all of a sudden you see the house is on fire. You see flames, and it like sort of flash over, and Bobby's face is just like, oh shit, and that's how that ended. And I know like there were random pictures out there from like somebody on the crew was posting pictures of a fire, and everyone was like, oh my God, it's Bugs. And like the exterior, like to my knowledge, did look like that. But like no, it's not that. It's
Again,
hard.
something else I feel vindicated in saying I didn't believe in it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of looking at it like, but we see Bobby sit up on the couch. And I was like, are we sure that he's just not having a nightmare? That he's
True.
thinking
See,
the
I've
house
had
is going
people
up in
speculate
flames?
that too. I've
I'm
heard
like,
people say that.
because then he would, like, his fear would be waking up like he did in because what we know from the fire was that he woke up, he went upstairs to the roof and was sitting on the roof drinking, but he left the heater on and didn't turn it off. And that's kind of what started this whole thing, or part of what started it. And I'm like, what if he's just waking up and we're seeing like the flashovers and stuff, and it's more of a nightmare, because then he's fearing that he's losing May, Harry, and Athena the same way he lost his other family.
I see. I feel both ways about it. Like, part of me feels like it could be like a hallucination or a nightmare. Like he's imagining this, but also the other part of me feels like it could, like their house could literally be on fire. I go both ways. Like I don't necessarily think that I think one way or the other. I can't decide what I think.
That's
Right.
fair,
Because I
honestly.
could
I'm
see
kind
them
of
going both ways. I'm just like, could they
Mhm.
play that page? I think they could.
I think they could do it. And I'm also kind of going both ways on it. Or maybe they're kind of teasing, like maybe the fire we see is a hallucination, but maybe there's a real fire, like later on, or I don't know. Like I
Oh
could go a lot of
yeah,
ways on
I
it.
could see that. Also,
So I don't know. Yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
can we talk about the fact, and I didn't realize this until somebody pointed it out, but why is Captain Gerard at the friggin' ceremony? Like, what
Oh
the
my
fuck?
God, what
Yes.
the fuck? I was like, what the hell
Why
is
does this
he
man
there
have a
for?
job?
I thought he got fired. I didn't think he just got transferred.
What
Ugh.
the
Yeah,
heck?
I thought he got forced into retirement. That's what I read from the situation, was that he was forced into retirement.
I don't.
Why
Did
is
they
he
include any of these things in at the time? I don't remember that. But I always thought that he got reprimanded and like fired. How does a man do so many wrong things? And I'm like, why is he here? And there's so many theories floating around online, and I'm just like, guys, shut up. I'm trying to enjoy these episodes, and you're ruining it, because some people are like, oh my God, he's gonna be there, and Buck and Tommy, like Tommy's gonna like
Oh my
do
God.
what Buck
Yeah.
did to him during their date, and Tommy is gonna see Gerard, and he's gonna like just go right back in the closet. I'm like, guys, shut up.
Oh my gosh.
I don't.
Slightly
I
better
think
takes
that's
on
too
that one,
much. I don't
but
think they're gonna do that. But like, why is he there? That's my main question. I don't really care about Buck and Tommy in this situation. I'm just like, why is this man here?
listen, I would not mind seeing one of two things. I would not mind seeing either Tommy being able to like kind of stand up for himself. The same with Chim and Hen, if Gerard causes any
Agreed. That
scenes,
part.
for them to be able to stand up for themselves a bit. For especially because we're talking about Tommy right now, like him as someone who is out and who's proud of himself and who has come a long way. But also, on the other hand, I would also love it if maybe for the first time we kind of see him lose his confidence a little bit, because it is like his past with Gerard is very loaded, it's very complicated. So he not it doesn't go back in the closet, but he like falters a little bit. But Buck is supporting. Like I would love to see that. If we were going to get any content with that, that's what I'd love to see. Either, but also like
Right.
I don't know. I've seen photos come out. Some of them I don't think. Some of them I think might be old behind the scenes photos.
Okay, let me just say that, like, if you're seeing any photos online, unless it is from literally the ABC press page, it's not real, because they haven't even released stills for this episode, because the ABC press page for like the last few episodes has seemed to not release pictures until literally the day the episode is airing, like in the afternoon. So that's how I know anything is like fake. Unless it's like
Yeah,
behind the scenes that the actors have taken or anybody on the crew has taken.
there is one photo floating around right now, and it's with Gerard and several other people on set. And the thing is that I am decently sure that that is from Chim Begins, because
I would
Chin is wearing
love
the
to see it.
same outfit from when the night he got stabbed. I am 95% certain.
It probably is like
So
old things recirculating.
Yeah.
people are saying, "Oh, that's new." I'm like, he's either going to play no part or he's going to have a small part. I don't think he's going to have a big part. People are thinking he's going to come back and take over the 118. I'm like, that'd be no, that's not
Delusional.
what's happening.
That's not happening.
No.
What the heck?
That's
I think
even
there's
if he
several
was
people that
still
have something to
working
say
there,
about that.
even if he was still working, which isn't he way past retirement age now anyway? Even
Probably.
if he is still working, what authority, what power that would be would return a captain to command of a firehouse he was removed from for complaints of abuse of employees.
Yep. I think there would be a lot of people that would have something to say about that. Han, Jim,
Mhm.
they would clue in everyone else and they would all complain. I'm
Bobby would
like,
have
why
something
is he
to say about
here? Like, what are you doing here? That was like, I was just like, it's weird. Like, we haven't seen the man since a flashback episode in season 2, and he's here, which I understand that they have said that they're basically trying to bring back like parallel things for like new fans of the show, which I think is cool. But also, like, why
Oh,
are we
yeah.
bringing this man back? There's like other people we could have brought back besides him, and I'm just like, what the heck? When I saw that, I was like, what the heck is going on? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
and just some things I've seen from people that like have screened the episode. Like, so I saw one that said like this week's 9-1, I feel like this season is picking up old threads and never got explored properly and digging deeper into them, and I love that. Two, buckle up. We're officially going 100 miles per hour and not slowing down. Hope you like getting punched in the gut repeatedly, and I'm like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
And then
I feel like that meme that goes, "I'm in danger."
yeah, yeah. I'm low key terrified, and I'm also like low key excited. I'm just like, I don't know how to feel because, and I'm like, some people are like, sometimes I feel like when people watch episodes before we do, they're just being super dramatic about, like, there was something that was said last week, and it was just like, take anything you see from somebody that sees the episode before you with a grain of salt because sometimes, yeah. And then like apparently
hype.
Kenneth Choi said the episode 9 is very Bobby Nash heavy episode, and he's very excited to see that because it's going to push Peter in all sorts of directions, and he's one of my favorite actors, which I thought that was so sweet.
Oh, I love it.
And then basically just like this, it's bringing up repeatedly by several different people that basically 709, the episode just reminds them of old 911, which I'm like, okay.
Well,
I don't know
we're loving it so far.
I don't know what that means, but I'm here for it either way.
I'm interested because I personally I would be surprised if we're done with the Coyote cartel end of things.
Agreed.
Because they still have a grudge to carry, especially the guy who lost his grandson. Now, that's not necessarily Bobby's fault, but so I'm curious. I'm like, originally, I didn't think we were going to continue to get Amir after this episode. I could go one of a couple ways. Not going to see him again. The Coyotes are going to take revenge on him, and we could possibly lose him, which I don't love putting that into the universe, but that is a thought I had. I don't know. I don't think we're done with the Coyotes. I think they're coming back. I think this might be the big emergency that we're going to look at. And if we do have an actual fire, I think it might be them. Now, I could be completely wrong.
They have his truck, so they're gonna have all his information.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
They have his truck. Herman is apparently he's under custody because he has a lot of information. Now, does that mean he's trying state's evidence, or does that mean that they're trying to pump an investigation out of him? I don't know. I don't. Too many loose ends.
When they said that he has information, I was like, watch this man break out of prison. I'm sorry, but like that's just how my brain works, and I'm just like, that is too good to be true.
Yeah,
I can see so many things happening.
I would love, for some reason, I just love these kind of storylines. I loved it when they did it in Lone Star, and I'm loving just a little glimpse, and I'm like, please, like I know this is a little on the way, but I want to see more of this.
Yeah.
And I would love to see the volunteer group get brought back too.
Yeah, that was a cool
like the
addition to
migrant.
the show.
That
I
was
like
such a cool like storyline, and like I would love for that to be like carried over, or even Bobby being like, oh hey, I want to like volunteer, help out,
That'd be so
Yeah.
cool. I could
and
so
like
see him
him
doing that.
bringing like somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like everything that in this episode that happened is not done.
Oh no, for sure. There's like a lot of loose ends, and like who knows if they're gonna like what's gonna get resolved this season, or what's gonna be a carryover storyline. I'm interested to seeing like um what sort of ending they do, how much of a
Yeah,
cliffhanger they do. Especially since we're going into like the final 2 episodes.
that is a good point too there.
I'm nervous but
Like
excited.
we're kind of getting down to the crunch.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I'm very excited. I this is already shaping up to be one of, if not my favorite season.
Yeah.
I hear that.
Like
Yeah.
I want to see how it ends before making the full call on that.
Right.
Yeah. It's already
It's already
shaping
gonna be a
up.
favorite.
Yeah, which hasn't happened for me since like season 4. I think that's the last season that I was like, oh, I really like this season. Like the
The
past
other
two
ones have been too
seasons.
iffy.
Yeah. The past 2
They've
seasons,
felt-
like they had good parts, but like they definitely weren't favorites.
So I know. I think we have a lot coming, but those are my predictions, and I'm either gonna be wildly off base or like surprisingly on target. I'm kind of excited to see which one.
I know, it's always interesting because like I feel like sometimes like I either get things or I just get them really wrong, and then I'm like, oh, yeah,
Yeah,
it's always fun.
I rarely have such large predictions. Like I'm kind of gonna go with the flow person, but um, no, I definitely have predictions for this one. So yeah, no, this was all good.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, we won't have an episode next week. Or let me look at the calendar. Yeah, next week. We'll have one on, I believe then our next episode will go up on June 6th. Just
Yeah.
because we're all in different places right now.
I'm in the UK.
Yeah.
Yep.
Grace is, yeah, so just to make things easier, we'll do 9 and 10 together, because honestly, doing 3 times, usually we're only doing 2 time zones, and we're sticking with 1 time zone 1 time, and doing 3 times is a little confusing, so I couldn't imagine us doing that for the last few weeks.
We already had a time zone confusion, and this is the only episode we have or will be recording in different time zones. Like we
Right.
don't need to go through this one again.
Yeah, no,
It worked out, but and also
Yeah.
like watching will be a little
yeah.
more difficult, and it's okay. We'll catch you guys in a couple weeks, and
And we're gonna tackle
Yeah.
both finale episodes at once.
We are, yeah. I'm
actually
down for
it.
it works out.
And I'm hosting that episode, and I'm so excited.
There
Yay.
you go.
I just thought that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the host for that one.
Yeah, that's fun, and yeah, it works out because then we can do like, because it'll be like, because they're calling it like a part 1 and a part 2 finale, so we could just do
Yeah.
it all at the same time.
We're definitely getting a cliffhanger.
I know. I'm okay with that because they
Definitely.
really haven't, and also and all like the previous 6 seasons, they really haven't done like major cliffhanger.
Yeah, at least not between the seasons.
Not
Yeah.
like from season season to season. I know there
Yeah.
were like ones mid-season. They were more the
Yeah.
mid-season fans, I guess.
Well, and I think that's kind of how I've always seen, like 911 has usually not gotten renewed until like just at the finale or right after them and Lone Star. So I'm okay with them having a cliffhanger, knowing that we're getting a season 8.
Yeah,
If I didn't know we
we'll
were
be
getting a
back in
season
2 months.
8, I would not want a cliffhanger, because I've had too many series and then a cliffhanger and then the show get canceled over the summer.
Even if like they usually like renew quickly, and also people were like floating around the idea that like 911 was in talks for the season 9. Guys, that is not true.
No, that was false
That
news.
was false. I don't know who made up that rumor, but somebody made that up, and people kept posting about it. And I'm like, guys, I think I was commenting on people's videos, and I was like, "Where's the source?" And
I
nobody
think I
replied
saw
to me.
something. I think I saw something which was like a tweet from like a non-reputable
Oh yeah,
like
it was on
site,
Twitter. Yeah, I saw.
which
Yeah.
That's enough of a health field in the 911 fandom right now. But
Yeah, it was like
yeah.
a fan page essentially. And I'm like, guys, this is not a good source. Like anything that's like TV line or anything with that can be like backed up. Like I'm just like, so when that news floated around there, I'm like, oh my God, have we all lost our marbles?
Like, it would be great. Let's not get it wrong. It'd be great if we already got a season 9. But I don't think we're gonna near talk about that until season 8 is started, at the very least.
Well, my thought is if they were going to give us a season 9 too, they would have just announced it with season 8. Because a lot of shows will do that. They'll renew for like 2 to 3 seasons. If like their ratings are really good, they'll like be like, hey, you guys are getting like 2 more seasons. So like I was just like, this is fishy.
Yeah, I remember when Glee got renewed in season 4 for 5 and 6. It was because they knew 6 was going to be the final season, and they decided to just renew it and then give it so it happens sometimes, but it's rare.
And again, like, we don't want it if that, well, like, we don't want such an early news if it meant like Glee. We're looking at the last season.
Right.
I would cry.
I would be inconsolable. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, no, we've got a lot of life left in us, guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining us and listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Also be sure to check out our website, 91lsroundup.com. You guys also can follow us on our socials at 91lsroundup on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. And as always, check out our Discord server. The link is in the description of this podcast and also on our website. You guys can follow me, Katie, at Tarlos on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads.
You guys can follow me, Grace, at RonanRaffle911 on Instagram and at SheepGirl31 on Twitter.
You can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and Facebook. Bye.
Bye.